So this mobile tutoring company approached me and they wanted to know, how could they get their business out there? So in other words, how could they, make more people aware of what they do, in terms of their services and, how they help people. And so first step for me is to have a look at, what are they saying now? What are they presenting now in terms of what's on their website and social media? So first things first, jumping on the website. First impression, the top area is pretty big for a site that obviously doesn't have a lot of menu choices. So it's a big space to give up to display a logo and a menu. The name itself, it's kind of clever, I suppose. It's Owl Learners, or it's a play on that word, but I'm not quite sure how people would say it, and certainly I don't know how they would type it, because it doesn't feel intuitive straight away. That's a by the by. It could just be a subjective thing that you know different people have different perceptions about. The homepage image, it's a little bit hard to read that text over the image. You can read it, but you having to do a little bit of work. So, either the background needed to be slightly different, or maybe different coloring used, or a different colored image so that it was a bit darker and the white text is a bit easier to read. All these little things just create the perception in a person's mind at how easily and quickly they're going to be able to absorb information. And remember, most people make a judgment in the first sort of few seconds, so everything's got to kind of be right as soon as you land on this site. The other part here, the image itself, it's a child, or it looks like a child either coloring in or doing a bit of craft. What has that got to do with mobile tutoring? So maybe the child's getting taught how to create something, I don't know, but he, visually probably would have been more representative was a photo of an adult with a child, or a happy child holding, a certificate or something, or something related to the whole idea of getting tutored and being successful. When you get into this next section, it's a massive block of text. It's difficult to read. There's no spacing, no bullet points, centered instead of left justified. And here it's talking about their approach. And I suppose one of the big questions would be is, at this point, would a parent care, or would they more care about, the potential outcomes they're going to be able to see for their child, which is improving in grades or certain subjects that they can help with. So in other words, you're talking about the customer's, pain point and ideal outcome first, then how you do it. And so that way, very quickly someone can understand that you're going to be able to do what they're looking for, rather than trying to have them read through a big block of text to understand how you would do something. Here we get into a map. When I read it, it does talk about the service all of Sydney, but the dot is sitting on Burwood, and so it's not clear immediately whether they do a whole area, a few suburbs, or do they go all the way out to the Blue Mountains or not, etc. So here it's just a clarity thing, and also it's another big block of text. We get down to the bottom, and again, this is unusual. Why would you bury a review at the bottom of a website? So most statistics will say that only 50% of people or 60% of people probably stay in the top third of a website. They probably won't even scroll to the bottom. So to bury a review this deep for a mobile tutoring business that is going to be looking for trust and um, social signals to sort of indicate that they look after kids, they help them, etc. To bury the review at the bottom doesn't make sense. It should be obviously a lot higher. The second thing is it's just all text. So there's nothing really to prove that it is on Google or it is on Facebook, or I don't know, it was a received via SMS or email or something where, someone can look at it and go, yes, that's a real review. And so, it puts a little bit of doubt into the credibility. In the footer itself, if they were hoping that somebody was going to be able to get down here and look at a phone number, it's difficult because the chat covers, you sort of got to scroll up and down. So it's not a good user experience. There's no links to Google. There's no links to any certifications. There's no links to ABN or anything like that. Sort of help establish whether they're a legitimate business. Um, Going into the About Us page, again, it's another big block of text, centered. Normally, most people would expect want to see, I think, people photos. And again, there's nothing in here showing child and adult. There's no real, photos of them doing what they say they do. So in other words, it's another small thing around building trust. Meeting the team, we've got same sort of thing here. So in other words, these people look like they've got amazing qualifications, lots of experience, which is great. But you're asking the person to do a lot of reading, and there's no visual. So who are these people? What do they look like? Are they young? Are they old? Um, you could even have videos in here introducing each individual and why they love doing what they do. There could be a whole heap of ways here that makes this a lot more personal. Again, this is a service that is selling a people to people, you know, experience. So here it's all about trying to create connection and trust, especially with an adult who'd be buying it for their child. Going into things like courses, I mean, obviously all this makes sense, but again, it's massive blocks of text, no visuals. It's just like on and on and on and on. So, you're asking a person to do a lot of hard work to make a decision as to whether or not to use you. And still, we're not seeing any proof. So, proof that they actually deliver any outcomes that are positive. Pricing obviously makes sense. This is laid out a little bit better. They talk about they take vouchers and stuff. Here doing these sort of things is always good to put the visuals in there or the logos from whatever uh, the provider is, so that it's easy and quick recognition. The blog, again, really text heavy. Some of the topics sort of make sense, but visually not presented very well. Um, no video, no photos. I don't know. There's not a lot of depth here. So if we go from the website to searching for them, can't see a Google My Business profile. Obviously, some mentions on different websites come up, so at least, I don't know, there's some indication they're legitimate. But again, no ABN or anything like that. Going to the socials, um, the header here, not a lot of people are going to necessarily visit a page. They might look at it to see if what they do share. But burying all this sort of stuff, in the header doesn't make a lot of sense because you can get those details in the about section. But the content itself, it's not very compelling. So in other words, it's all one way. It's like, here's my pricing, here's what I do. There's no real engagement in terms of the people behind the business, their approach to doing tutoring, results they've delivered. You know, there's nothing here. So there's no people behind this. So in other words, if you're a parent, why would you choose these people? You can't even see who it is. You can't even see reviews. There's nothing. Um, so it might be a business starting out, but one way stuff, which is just ads basically promoting how much they cost and where they are, is never going to work. It's got to be about the people, the approach, the thought processes, and hopefully there's some examples of kids that they've helped. The Instagram, similar. So it's the same content on both profiles. There's nothing compelling here to convince someone. So even if the website had 1,000 visitors tomorrow, and or you advertise on social and got and push people to their social pages, there's nothing here that's really convincing or compelling um, to help a parent choose that for their child. There's not even a photo of a child being taught, and that's the challenge. When the market is saturated, the challenge is to build credibility quickly. Doing a quick check on SEMrush, no surprises, no traffic. There's no content on the site that would pull traffic. And even from a technical setup point of view, and I'll just adjust my video. Um, there's nothing on here that would help it rank. So, you know, the H1 heading really should be mobile tutoring service in Sydney rather than with the brand name. And then the rest of it, doesn't really suit getting found with search. And so, as you can see, there's a mixture of challenges that this business has got in terms of visual presentation, how the information is presented, um, the lack of trust factors, the lack of, I would say, credibility. You can't see an ABN, for example, can't see any credentials around whether they're, approved to be able to work with kids and stuff like that. So there'll be all these different things that parents would be thinking about when they're looking at this stuff. But stripping all of that back, there's nothing convincing or compelling to have someone have, or, build the confidence to say, these guys can teach my kid subject X, Y, Z and help them get better results. There's nothing on here that would, inspire confidence that that would be the case. So even though the people have got amazing experience and they're obviously, got a lot of different skills and they obviously offer a lot of different options, there's nothing behind all of that to prove that they're able to deliver. And so, whether it's a startup business or an established one, these are the challenges you would face if all of this stuff is not presented really well on the website or social profiles. So, having gone through all of that, what would be the actionable steps that this business could take, within the next 2 weeks, for argument's sake? So, first thing and the simplest thing would be to look at the imagery. So, here, for example, either source a stock photo off the internet of an adult with a child that looks like they're learning, or organize for a simple photo shoot where the actual tutors that work for this company are with students or kids that are in the target profiles that they're trying to sell tutoring to. So, in other words, if they're focused on secondary kids or kids that are in year 11 and 12 or primary kids for a certain subject, there would be photos of, those different types of kids learning. The header I would then change so it's easier to read. They don't need to repeat their brand name here. You'd focus on the fact that it's mobile tutoring. Um, you would make this header thinner so it's not taking up so much space, and then spread the menu out so it's a little bit easier to navigate. The big one, which I've skipped, would be the name, only because I'm not sure how you would say it. It's not our learners and it's not our learners. I don't know. That's a tricky one. It's not. It may be hyphenated. I don't know. But long term, that could be a tricky one. If you walk down the street and ask people what that is and they can't say it, then that's potentially an issue, because you got to think, you want, over time, you're building a brand, you want people to be able to easily recall it, easily type it, easily refer it to someone. And so having a one word name is good, but you obviously want it to be something that's easy to say and to remember. So here, for example, could be our tutoring. I mean, that's what the business is about, right? And it still, plays on the our wording. This whole thing here about approach, I would get rid of it. Add another section that talks about, the dream outcomes. Um, Mark improvements. I don't know. Improving test scores. Whatever the outcomes are that this tutoring helps to deliver, you'd focus on those first. Then you would put some examples of reviews or testimonials. Um, then you would put maybe some of the key subjects you're focusing on, and then you'd put your approach. And then the approach will be broken down into, bullet points. We come to you, we cater to, kindergarten to year 12. Um, I don't know, customizable options for timing, exam preparations, etc., etc. So in other words, it's sort of the key highlights, the things that people are probably looking for. The where we work, maybe they are based in Burwood, but you would change this graphic so that, there's a loop or circle or dotted line or something to show the specific areas that they service. The review I mentioned should go up higher. There should be a separate page to show all the reviews. There should be a link to where you can see the originals. So in other words, if the originals are on Facebook or Google or some other platform, put the links there so people can see that the reviews are genuine. So that'd just be on the homepage. On the About Us page, here left justify the text. Um, I would really be looking at the copy because a lot of it is the same sort of stuff you would read on all the other websites. So in other words, what makes this business different? Is there anything that's unique? And then that's what you want to be calling out. Otherwise, this is all the same. One of the unique things could be, certain scores, or could even be business achievements or something that the actual tutors have achieved. So in other words, if everything you do is the same, maybe it's a little bit more focused on the outcomes that some of the people teaching have achieved in their lives. The meet the team, no brainer, video and photo. Who are these people? You also probably want to bullet point their biggest achievements. Did they score a really high ATAR? Did they come first in their class? Was there certain subjects they were amazing at? So in other words, instead of forcing someone to try and read all this, photo, video intro, bullet points, and then if somebody really wants to read the rest of it, let them read it. So in other words, just make it really easy for people to digest the information. The blog, really simple, preview photo. This one here, benefits of personalized learning. I mean, I don't know. I think the very first blog post I want to see is maybe benefits of tutoring in your own home or something, or I don't know, benefits of using a mobile tutor, I suppose, something that relates back to their service. You can still talk about personalized learning, but make it something that helps someone understand why the hell they would want a mobile tutor, or why would you need a tutor in the first place. Some of this stuff, other stuff is good as well, but again, make this visual instead of this big long, block of text, and make it easier for people to digest. On the courses page, this probably really needs to be broken up into, separate sections with visuals. Give people space to be able to read all the different things. Um, and make it easier for people to, digest the information, probably with buttons to let people inquire specifically about that thing. Because right now, the inquiry button then forces someone to fill in, all the details. Whereas if the sections had their own buttons, all that stuff could be pre-filled, and it just makes it easier for someone to, to put an inquiry through. So it's taking away some of the frictions. At the bottom, you don't need to repeat the logo 3 times. Um, there should be an ABN. There should be other, I don't know, licenses or some other criteria to prove the legitimacy of what this business is offering. If they've got safe to work with kids certificate or any of that sort of stuff of that nature, you would show it so that people can see it really easily. So that's just a mixture of how to present the brand from so let's say an SEO point of view. If they're hoping to try and get found in the Sydney region for mobile tutoring, you'd really have to have a lot better content. So in other words, you'd focus this as the main heading. um, this, depending if you added all the other sections I mentioned, the headings here would have to change. So in other words, it could be how we deliver mobile tutoring instead of our approach. So in other words, you're finding that balance between what the robots want to rank and obviously what humans will understand. So it's a little bit of a mixture of the two, and combining that. Where we work, I mean, you don't actually. It's more about where we do tutoring, or what suburbs do we provide mobile tutoring, or something like that. So in other words, it's relating it back to the service that's getting provided. Behind that, there would have to be schema added, which tells Google that it's a service. You would want to look at the metadata on each page to see, what shows up on a Google search. Is it interesting? Is it something someone's going to want to click on? You probably want to show the latest blog post on this homepage so that there's, some connection between the main page most people would visit and obviously then the individual posts. And you'd want to make sure the photos. I think this page is built on Square, so I can't actually look at the photo in the way it's been named, but you would actually name the photos student getting tutoring, or tutor helping student with maths or something, depends on what page it was. The only other consideration will be is for the courses, you would create individual pages for different subjects of tutoring. So, English tutoring Sydney, for argument's sake, maths tutoring Sydney. So, in other words, you'd make it specific so that each page talked about that particular topic. What it would mean is, instead of just talking about maths very generically, you could talk about the subjects that it covers or the levels, but then go into detail in terms of within that what would be taught, or what help would be given for that subject. The reason for doing that is you're then making that page very specific to somebody who wants tutoring for maths. Right now, this is very generic. It's just tutoring for everything. And so what typically will happen is Google won't really figure out what this is tutoring for. So they might end up ranking for something to do with tutoring, but then nothing to do with anything specifically for a particular subject. There will be people looking for a tutor for physics, chemistry, biology, like specific subjects. So you'd want to have those to give yourself a chance to get found, for those particular topics. Um, the other thing they could do is go look at competitors. So in other words, what if you put yourself in a customer's shoes, what do they see? So these guys, for example, I mean, I have no idea who they are, but they show you each of the tutors, what their ATAR was, what subjects they specialize in, a little bit of a brief, and at least you get to see a photo. So at least you're getting some understanding of who is potentially the person that you get to deal with. And so, continuing on that theme, I hate the menu on this site. You can see I'm getting caught with it popping up. You get to see reviews. There's not a link to their Google My Business profile, which is a shame. So, in other words, are these real? I don't know. They could be created. Believe it or not, you can create these sections pretty easily. So, I don't know if this is getting fed from their profile. If I do the work and go look for them, they do have 126 odd reviews. So they could be legitimate. But notice here, not very many of these profiles have photos, but the ones that are getting shown on the website do. So it's a small thing. You'd rather show real reviews. It's more likely some people are going to believe it. And a lot of these are very short, whereas the ones on the website are quite long. So these are all the tiny things that it can help with conversions, converting someone from visiting to actually wanting to make an inquiry. And you notice here, their Google My Business profile's got choices then for people to choose, multiple choices in terms of where to go to look on their website. And that's what happens when you set a site up properly. Just going back to this site, the good thing is, or the other good thing they've done, it's human. There's a lot of visual of, kids or students. They look like stock photos. I don't think they're real, but, at the end of the day, it's better than nothing. This looks like it does link to their Google reviews, which is really good. Um, here again, these look like profiles of, I don't know, the photos don't look as professional in the tutor section as they do here. So maybe they use stock photos and they mixed it up with real photos on the other page. But straight away, it's very human. You can relate to it. It's making it nice and really easy how they work, subjects they do. So the layout and presentation is completely different. So you can imagine someone coming to this site and looking at, the way they present. It's completely different. It's much clearer, bit of a comparison, showing schools that use them, reviews, then pricing and obviously inclusions, packages, FAQs. So if we go back here, this is an example of the courses. Look at the difference. You got to read through and get through all of this to try and figure out what it is they offer and what's included. No reviews, no personality or no people behind the business, even though they're probably amazing tutors. So all of these little bits and pieces can get done in a couple of weeks. They can completely transform the way the business is presented. And then the next step after that would be, how do you get more traffic to the website? It's either going to be lots of content creation to try and have any chance of getting found through organic search, or it's going to be doing that plus a Google business profile to get found in the local area of Sydney or the inner west if they're based in Burwood, as well as potentially looking at advertising either on Facebook or with Google Ads. The single biggest challenge will be, even if you got 50, 100, 200, or 1,000 people, if this website's not changed to have better quality information, more compelling, reasons to choose them, some really clear proof that they can deliver, then it doesn't matter what volume of people you get here, they won't turn into a lead, because any parent will be doing the same thing. They will be looking at what can they find if they did a search, who maybe recommends different companies based on Facebook groups and whatnot. Maybe there's referrals from their friends, and then they'll be doing their own comparison when they go and look at different companies. And so if you do a comparison and you go to, this business compared to this one, it's chalk and cheese in terms of how it's presented. And so a lot of businesses will get worried about they're not getting traffic or they want to go start doing advertising. But one of the big things you have to have a look at is, do you present competitively enough in your niche to be able to even be chosen by anybody? And so just doing this one example of this business versus this business, you can see, or I can see, who would choose who, because the other one just feels a lot more trustworthy, a lot more credible. I have no idea whether the tutors are any good, but just the way it presents, it's a lot stronger. And they have 100 or reviews as proof. Whereas this business, maybe it's a startup, I don't know, but this one doesn't have all that stuff. And so it becomes really tough then to get people to make a decision and choose them. So that's a bit of a wrap up of what I can see as an external, third party as a marketing consultant, and the steps I will take to make some changes to help them improve what they're doing, and some of the reasons why, by simply looking at local competition and some of the execution that's been done.